to Creature Club. In this podcast, sorry. I don't know what kind of voice.
Hello.
Welcome
Really
to It seemed like a really professional start.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is very nice.
Yeah, that's staying in. Okay. Hey guys,
Okay,
welcome
good.
to Creature Club. Another episode of this. In this podcast, we go through the 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual, and we talk about the monsters in alphabetical order. We talk about the history of D&D and even in the real world, and we talk about the stat block and how we use it in encounter. And that is it. Whew. All right. I never get to say it all. So
Yeah, well done, man.
yeah. Whoa, that's a lot. That's a lot of talking. I'm not used to talking that much. This episode is Banshee.
The first of the bees.
I didn't mention that. Yeah, first of B. Welcome B. Welcome to the show.
I
Nice one,
couldn't
Tim.
help myself. I'm sorry.
Nice Foley work. Yeah, we're done with A's. That felt like a.
If I ever see an A again, I'll be very upset. Oh no, there's one right beside the B in Banshee.
Oh no. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the Banshee. Actually, just real quick for our international listeners out there, if you guys didn't get it already, we are the three of us are Irish. So I would say that we know a thing or two about Banshees, but we not really, but we know a little bit. Like
We can pronounce all of the Irish words that you're used to describe them correctly.
yeah.
I was just going to say I would never have claimed to know more about the Banshee because we're
Yeah.
Irish.
But I just want to make sure people know that, like, just because we're tidily
Yeah, if there's any like Irish pronunciation we need, we're gonna like nail it, especially Tim. But I mean, I think we've more than made up for it with our terrible pronunciation of all of the previous months.
of like
so
everything else. Yeah.
This is the first one that we are absolutely sure of.
But the good thing about Banshee is that they're like the name Banshee is kind of spelt in phonetics now. If it was like the
Yeah.
real one, it'll be like bean sigh
yeah,
in the Irish
Ah,
spelling.
the bean sigh.
So that's handy. So what's a Banshee, Tim?
Hey everyone, this is Tim. I made a bit of a hames of describing the history and actual real-world origin of the Banshee, so we're cutting that bit out, and I wrote a little script to describe what they were and give a little bit of context. Enjoy. A cold wind blows on a dark night, shaking the trees outside. Children in their beds, sleeping soundly. The creak of a rocking chair and a gentle tune being hummed as a needle pulls thread. A distant shriek. The tune stops. A nearer, sorrowful keening clutches the hearts of those listening. A terrified silence falls across the house. The story of the Banshee is one of myth, mystery, and folktale. The word Banshee comes from the Irish Banshee, which directly translates to fairy woman. The Banshee was a harbinger of death and warned families of a coming fatality in the family. Often heard but not seen, the Banshee would shriek sorrowfully for the family to hear. This cry is referred to as a keen, which comes from the Irish word keena. The origin of the Banshee is up for debate, with the most prominent theories being that they were pagan women who would take alcohol as payment to mourn the death of a warrior, but priests in the 8th century cursed them for eternity for their trade, never to rest, or that they were simply the cry of a fox or a barn owl. In the ancient mythology of Ireland, Abel, or Abel, the guardian spirit of the Dalcassians and the queen of the fairies of Munster, was described similarly, and as the queen of the Banshees. There are accounts of visual descriptions of the Banshees, but they are inconsistent, some referring to beautiful women with long, curly, white or red or blonde hair, crying with arms open, while others refer to ugly old women dressed in rags, shrieking into the night. Banshees are still reported as having been heard before the death of a loved one to this day.
Yeah, I kind of just classic Creature Club, Mikey DC. I was looking at this the day of, so thanks. I'm learning. I learn as much as the listeners do in this show. So
Yeah, I found it very difficult to come across their origin in D&D.
yeah,
I'm not sure what place they were brought in. I'd imagine, like a lot of others, they came in 3rd edition, because I think that was kind of a mythological heavy introduction for a lot of things.
Yeah, that is the earliest I'm seeing it with what I'm finding here, but it could be older, but that's the earliest I'm seeing is 3rd edition.
Yeah.
They were definitely in 4th edition because I've used them in 4th edition, and of course they're in 5th edition because we're reading it right now. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of them in for D&D in this. It's just kind of whenever I look it up on like if I Google it or something, it's just coming up with the stuff that's in the 5th edition book right here. So it's just kind of stuff that we already know.
Totally.
So anything else on like the actual Banshee? I know there's a lot, but there's quite a bit on it.
Not IRL, but if we want to jump into how they are portrayed in D&D, we should do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Before we recorded the podcast, I read the first paragraph in a rather spooky, scary voice. Since this is an undead character, and I quite liked it, so I want to do that now. Is that okay with you guys?
That is okay.
When night falls, unlucky travellers hear the faint cries of the forlorn dead. This woeful spirit is a banshee, a spiteful creature formed from the spirit of a female elf.
So in D&D, they have definitely taken it from a very different angle from the kind of source material.
Do you think so?
Yeah, oh, certainly, because a banshee wouldn't be something that you'd fight.
Right. Sorry. Yeah. That's a very good point. I was thinking more like I thought you were taking issue with the line that it's a female elf. But no, because I was thinking about like, I don't know, the idea that like before elves were like in Tolkien, they were like fae folk.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They were like tricksters and they would like steal children and you had to ward them off with iron and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that just a little flavor thing, or are they actually all elves in D&D?
Well, it describes how banshees are specifically formed basically when an elf is selfish with their like immortality and beauty and abilities effectively, and they become a banshee. I think it's very reasonable to say that there's not really any reason you couldn't have other banshees.
Yeah. I guess if you want to make ghosts canon in your world, but if undead and zombies can be, then might as well. Like, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. So
totally. I think if you were to put in the original banshees, if you just said you're sitting at the dinner table and suddenly you hear this shrieking sound from outside your house, they're immediately going to go out and try to fight whatever is shrieking.
Oh, yeah.
Although it is kind of funny to just be like, you hear shrieking outside the house and there's like, you just like, everyone roll a dice, and if you roll under a number you die because you were the one the banshee picked. Like just like something really awful. Like
That's really
it doesn't
good. They've taken it from the like spiteful idea, the more aggressive ghost, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're right to say like they made the banshee a monster rather than just sort of
a fey creature that exists.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's a different direction they're going with it then from the original bit. Next bit here, sorrow-bound. A banshee becomes forever bound to the place of its demise, unable to venture more than 5 miles from there. It is forced to relive every moment of its life with perfect recall, yet always refuses to accept responsibility for its doom. So, this I usually skip ahead a little bit, but you can have that as kind of a
put that dessert down.
Put that dessert down.
Get that spoon of
Get your hands out of my
mouth.
pudding.
My hands in all the puddings now. My fingers in all the pies. I'll go into it later a little bit more, but you can have that as a little a part of an adventure where there's a banshee going around this certain area. Why are they going this certain area? But we'll go on that later.
I was going to ask Tim,
Yes.
did you find anything about, so obviously like, they're called Banshee, and for those of you who don't know, in Irish, like that, obviously it's an English corruption of an Irish word, but the word ban is a woman. I was just going to ask, is there any example of like I guess a far she?
Ooh. No, there isn't really. Not specifically that I'm aware of.
So for our non-Irish listeners, far is man. So far she would be fairy man rather than fairy woman. And what was the Leinster translation for Keenan?
Banshee.
So it would be like far Keensa.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
is pretty reasonable. But I think a lot of Irish imagery tends to go towards women or female visages and representations, because in almost all representations of Ireland, like in a human form, it is almost exclusively this beautiful woman with either blonde or black hair, always
Not red
with
hair?
these blue eyes. No, you'd be surprised at how little red-haired people actually appear in Irish
fair enough.
folklore. Yeah.
I was only going to mention because I mean I suppose if we assume the origin for the myth is based on the noise of foxes, and I don't want to be too busy correcting you, but that noise, it's not foxes mating, it's actually a noise of warning that female foxes make after they've given birth to cubs.
Oh.
It's
Okay,
effectively a way of
right.
them marking their territory. The reason it's a scary sound is because they don't want anyone coming near, because they don't want their kids to be in danger.
Right. Okay.
But it is worth saying that noise, because obviously there's foxes in like my street, so I hear them in the spring. That noise does sound more like a woman screaming than a man screaming.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously I'd imagine that might be the reason that we have a stronger association with it being a female spirit rather than a male spirit.
Yeah.
The kind of higher pitched, kind of screechy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
But yeah, sorry, that's just took you on a little journey. I apologize.
No worries.
Is there anything else we want to talk about before we have our dinner?
Maybe have a little nibble at dinner and see if we can continue eating it along the way.
Jump into dinner.
Jump into dinner. Let's dive.
Jump into these mashed potatoes. We are really mixing metaphors here.
Yeah, climb up the ladder, guys, and wait your turn. Go down the slide, and you're in the potatoes.
Climb up the broccoli and swim through the gravy.
What? Swim through the
dear.
gravy, because it's dinner time.
Dinner time.
That's a good name for meat and potatoes section. I guess another name, Dinner Town.
Dinner
Dinner
town. Come on down to dinner town.
I'm pretty sure some people will sue us, but okay.
Banshee. Medium undead, chaotic evil. So no reasoning with this thing, I guess.
Yeah. Leaning
Chaotic.
into the evil, angry spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much leaning into that, which is interesting because it would almost make more sense to, well, I guess maybe this is just how I'd play it. I'd almost start them off. I don't think I'd make them like inherently evil. I think I'd make them just like I wouldn't even align them. I'd probably just say that they're like a spirit and they're angry because of how they are. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not like when a person is evil, they've made decisions or circumstances have forced them to be there. This is like a ghost, basically. Like,
Yeah,
you can't, it's not the same standard of like
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ghosts don't really have a morality. They just are angry about something.
you're going to jail, Mrs. Banshee, for a long time
for all
Ghost
the evil you've
jail.
done. Yeah,
for
but
all the
they're
evil.
but they're they're angry about something, and that's the thing they're going with. So it's kind of weird to put an alignment on it, but I guess it would be evil because you gotta fight something, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a good way of, I guess it's to make clear maybe the idea that you like it's very difficult to, like, you can't bargain with this thing to get rid of it or whatever.
Yeah.
You kind of just need to get rid of it.
I know Fori uses the unaligned alignment a lot, and I don't think 5e does that a lot in its stuff, but I'd say
Yeah,
that'd
mostly,
be
it uses online for like monsters, like dogs and like not dogs, but like creatures. Well, I think dogs are one of them, but like creatures that are like animals and therefore can't be held to like moral standards.
and I saw the Azer as well, actually, when we were recording that. So
Oh, and Fori, he was unaligned,
he was unaligned, yeah.
so it can only fly, it can only hover, which makes sense. It's a ghost. Doesn't really like it's kind of weird when they're like, it doesn't have a normal speed, it only has a fly speed. You're like, what? Why does that matter?
Well,
What would it-
that's its normal speed.
like, why would it? Like, if it had a normal speed, like, it's just weird. Anyway, sorry. It has bad strength because it is not corporeal. And otherwise, its stats are fine. It's got very high charisma, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's going with the entire, like, alluring you with its beauty kind of thing and kind of like charming you, that kind of stuff.
A lot of resistances. Resistant to basically everything except... it's resistant or immune to everything except radiant, magic weapon damage, and...
Basically non-magical attacks, as it says.
Well, it says...
Wait, from non-magical attacks.
It says
Okay.
acid, fire, lightning, thunder, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks.
Right.
So it's not resistant to radiant and magical weapon attacks. And I think that's it. It's got everything else covered.
Necrotic.
It's immune to it's immune to cold, necrotic, and poison.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because when you see something like this, when you see this kind of stat line, what you have to remember is that, like, it says all these, and then it says, like, whatever, like, so in this case it says like 58 hit points, but it doesn't have 58 hit points. It actually has closer to like 100 because half the time your players are dealing half damage.
And they're like testing the ground to see if can we hit it with this. Maybe.
Like, like they use some abilities that will deal maybe no damage, but a lot of the abilities they use will just deal half damage. Like, there's literally, 2 sources of non-halved damage in the entire game. So unless someone's a paladin or a cleric, it's just like, well, we're going to be here all night.
And depending on how, like, generous your DM is feeling, he might say, lead you to the fact that, like, some certain types of damage aren't doing as much damage, and say, like, when the paladin does, like, a divine strike or a divine smite, that it, like, shrieks back in terror kind of thing.
Yeah, and this is interesting. This is another example of what I mentioned before with the Azer, the idea that, like, it has resistance to almost everything, but it's not vulnerable to radiant. Whereas, like, design-wise, what you could do is you could clear out half of those resistances. You could increase its hit point total, and then say it's vulnerable to radiant.
That is very true.
Which is very much. It's very obvious to me that this is a design decision that the designers of 5th edition have made. I don't know why, to be honest. It's one of the sticking points I find with 5th edition, because it feels to me like vulnerabilities is a great thing to give your players, right? Because it's like, you dealt double damage, like, that's exciting. And, like, you get to write how much health it has, so you get to decide how important that double damage is. So, like, you can literally let your player deal double damage every turn, and it doesn't matter because they actually had twice as much hit points the whole time. So it's just weird to me that they made the decision of, like, no, we're going to use them extremely rarely.
Yeah. Have we had any damage vulnerabilities before?
I don't think we have so far. It's actually pretty hard to run into them.
Yeah, I don't remember any.
Nor I. So,
Like,
yeah,
even
vulnerabilities used very sparsely in 5th edition.
But that's obviously, a decision they made. Condition immunities. It's immune to a whole list of things, but it's actually that is, as far as I know, a standard list for incorporeal undead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Charmed, exhausted, frightened, grappled, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, prone, and restrained. So I know all the ones like grappled and prone are because it's a ghost, and obviously you can't, like, physically dominate
You can't full Nelson a ghost, yeah.
it. Even though if you could, holy shit, it's gonna be unreal.
Unless you had, like, magic gloves or something that, like, you can full
That would
Nelson a
actually-
ghost.
Those are actually, I think those are an item in Pathfinder.
Yeah?
That is probably a very legitimate point. It's immune to being grappled, even if you have super grapple gloves. Magic grapple gloves.
Well, I don't think super grapple gloves exist, but you could probably make it a thing if you want.
Super grapple gloves.
If you have a grappler in your party, then as a DM, you should add some super ghost grappling gloves. Okay, we're digressing here. I'm sorry, guys.
Although super ghost grappling gloves is definitely what they get called.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a great name. You're gonna match my super ghost grappling gloves. I'm gonna gross grapple your grapple ghost. I'm coming at you.
Yep, that's a fun image. Grappling
a fun
ghosts.
image.
The ghost grappler. The ghost grappling /slinger. Well, it can speak Common and Elvish, which is probably representative of its Elvish nature.
Yeah.
Good old sense making there. They're good at that. And then challenge rating 4. So this is a challenging challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely a Banshee feels like the culmination of an arc. You know,
Yeah.
feels like you're in a town and some bad stuff's going on. Depends on how you want to run the Banshee. We'll get to that later on. But like, and then sort of you're like, it was a Banshee, and then you go to the place and you throw the holy water, and you're like, you get out of here.
Huzzah!
That's right. I had enough of you. So yeah, I think that's kind of appropriate. It actually feels like a great end game for a low level party.
Oh yeah, I've used Banshee as a boss fight
Really?
for like different
cool.
Yeah, for like different parties and stuff.
You should definitely talk about that when we're having dessert.
Oh yeah, definitely, because I tend to get big excited and talk about it too early, so I'm gonna leave it till later this time.
Yeah, good boy. So then we'll go through its abilities. It's got Detect Life. I really like this version of Detect Life.
Yeah.
The Banshee can magically sense the presence of creatures. Sorry, never mind. Of creatures up to 5 miles away that aren't undead or constructs, so living creatures basically. She knows the direction they're in, but not their exact location. So this plays really well with the idea that like the Banshee is bound to like a 5 mile area.
Right.
You know, like there's sort of a 2.5 mile radius area that she can inhabit. And so to kind of enhance that, she knows whenever anyone enters like her domain, basically. In fact, I must say, Banshee, you could do some really cool lair actions or regional effects. But let's move on. That'll be for dessert. Incorporeal movement, it's a ghost. It can go through things as if it was a ghost, but it can't stop in them or take some damage.
Yeah, that's just weird. When I read that, like, if you end your turn inside an object, it does damage to you. It's just like, in terms of like design, I just found it very funny. Where
I know what you mean. Yeah, it's like a weird idea of like, the Banshee stops in a wall and that's like shunted out and goes, ow! Like, it's like, what are you doing?
Tree?
How do you describe that to your players? Like how to take damage? Oh, because like if you're painting the picture, like, oh, and she flies into the wall and stops there, and like,
the wall vomits her out.
Yeah.
And then she punches the tree, and the tree just shrugs.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
and then you're fighting a tree ant.
I mean, I think the actual reason is just because I think if they didn't have that ruling, there might be, I don't know, this is my guess, like, there might be a type of DM. You know what? I don't even think it's a type of DM. I honestly don't know. But what I'm thinking is like if they didn't have that rule, a Banshee could reasonably sit inside a square that couldn't be reached and just hit people outside it. Which is like, so like design wise, it's like a combat rule to stop them from basically being unhittable. But it's very weird to say there because you're kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, it can detect life. That's really cool and and like really thematic. And then like, oh, if it goes into a wall, the wall punches it and it leaves. And like it's just like it's not clear why. Oh, sorry, yeah, that's a good point actually. She takes force damage from that if she stays inside an object. Force is another example of a damage type she's not resistant to.
Okay.
So your magic missile would be great.
Oh yeah. Actions.
Action.
Action. Corrupting touch. It's just a regular old necrotic damage attack. That's it.
I'm a fan of that. I use that all the time with my undead boys.
It's not too bad. It's not very, the hit's not very good, and the damage isn't very high. It seems like the kind of thing that you could just do, and it's not a big deal. So yeah, that's fine. The one thing I'll say about Corrupting Touch is it's not very accurate, given that you're fighting a level 4 party at that stage.
Oh yeah.
+4 to hit isn't great. So, I mean, this is like literally just, this is kind of brass tacks. So it's, it's not for everyone, but it's just like, it's worth mentioning, like, the intention here is obviously that the attack doesn't always hit, but when it does, you get to roll 3d6, and that's always fun.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's to do with like her being the kind of incorporeal floaty monster, and it seems to be like plus her proficiency plus her dex, which isn't great essentially. Like if she is a low level character thing, she would have +2 and then +2 on her dex. So she's not really fast. She's just kind of reaching out and trying to touch you. And then it deals some
It's
damage.
it's a melee spell attack though, so I think it's
Yeah,
her
I think it's
whatever-
actually her. I think it's actually her int, and her proficiency bonus is
Oh.
+3.
All right.
That would be my
or
guess.
charisma or something. I don't
No,
know.
because then if it was her charisma, she'd have a proficiency bonus of +1, and that doesn't make sense. Nobody
No,
has
it
a
makes no
proficiency
sense.
bonus of +1.
You're right. Banshees apparently, but yeah.
Like
right.
level 1 characters have more than a +1 proficiency bonus, and she's an undead queen or whatever.
Yeah. Yes, Queen.
Yes, queen.
Yes,
But yeah,
queen.
that's fair.
Why did we
Okay.
all do that?
I don't know. It's just kind of a weird.
Because we live in a meme culture, Daniel.
yeah.
Horrifying visage.
Visage, Daniel.
It's Leviosa.
Visage, please.
Each non-undead creature within 60 feet of the Banshee that can see her must succeed a DC 13 Wisdom saving throw or be frightened for 1 minute. A frightened target can repeat the saving throw at the end of its turns. Blah blah blah. Disadvantage. Any in a turn.
Disadvantage
blah,
if you can see it's still Banshee.
Yeah. Basically, she can scare you.
She's real spooky.
She's really
Yeah.
spooky.
If the target succeeds or the effect ends, the target is immune to the visage for the next 24 hours. So what I like about this ability is it's not a recharge ability. It's not a per day ability.
Yeah.
It's literally she can do it whenever she likes.
Oh yeah.
So you really get the impression that like probably what happens is she does that first, and like that's the reason that they probably need like adventurers to deal with the Banshee, because like normal people would just be terrified and run off.
But it's also a way for her to effectively go up and use her corrupting touch.
Well, no, because frightened creatures run away.
Oh, is it? I thought they were stunned.
No, frightened creatures have to spend their turn trying to leave the presence of whatever frightened them.
Yeah, well, I wasn't paying attention for a second.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's disadvantage on checks and attacks while it's in line of
Yeah.
sight and can't move any closer to him. So
My mistake.
Oh, sorry, it can't move any closer. Yeah, but sorry, you don't have to run away, but like it feels thematic a lot of the time that they would
Yeah.
try to. Yeah. So, but I like the way that I think the only thing I'd add is I might add the idea that like for the duration of the horrifying visage, any affected creature's hair turns white.
Ooh,
Might do something like that.
flavorful.
that's cool.
Just because I think it's cool. Literally no other reason. But yeah, and then finally their special ability. Whale once per day, or you could say keen if you prefer.
They saw a whale.
A whale of a time.
Suddenly, there's a party.
So I really like the first line of this special ability. The Banshee releases a mournful wail provided that she isn't in sunlight. I really like that. I just really like the idea that like, you know, she doesn't come out during the day. Like she's like a terror during the night, but during the day she has like almost no effect. Like her most powerful ability doesn't work.
Maybe she just walks around as her original pretty form
Maybe.
during the day.
Maybe.
Damn, I'm jumping quickly into dessert without realizing it.
Yeah, you put both your feet in my pudding. I'm very upset.
I got my feet in the pudding.
I was eating my dinner mindlessly, and my spoon landed in my ice cream, and I ate it.
And now DC gets your ice cream.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know. I'm mixing metaphors. I don't know what that means.
my fingers in the pie and I'm eating your ice cream.
Stop. Let me finish this.
Anyway,
Go ahead,
Daniel.
Anyway, okay. The whale doesn't do anything to the whale, because it's an ocean-based creature, doesn't affect constructs or undead.
Stop it.
I will not. You started it. Yeah, sorry. So the keen has no effect on constructs or undead. All of the creatures within 30 feet of her that can hear must make a DC 13 Constitution saving throw. If they fail, they drop to 0 hit points. If they
Whoa.
succeed, they take 10 psychic damage, or it's 3d6. I know. I really like it.
All I saw was whale once a day. I was like, that's a bit weird. The way it's the iconic Banshee thing.
Yeah, it's the iconic
whale.
Banshee's whale, but yeah.
And then I saw that damage. Like, oh, never mind. Yeah, makes sense.
It's not even damage. It's just 0. It's just
Yeah.
like, I don't care how much health you have. Your health is 0.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit annoying to give it less damage than the corrupting touch, or the less potential damage. But I'm not going to complain if it's just going to kill someone.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the idea is that like corrupting touch only deals that amount of damage if it hits, whereas comparatively, that's if the whale fails, it still deals damage.
Yeah. That's it might be worth being a little bit careful with that for DMs who plan to use banshees, because that could be. Make sure you have a party who can handle that, because it could be a bit like unfair if you just TPK'd with like a special move and that's it. Like make sure, like
The Banshee full Nelsons you and you die.
Full Nelson's the entire party.
yeah, and then suplex. But I guess make sure that some party members have good constitution or something. Just try. Don't be cheap with that, and make sure you know the party before you throw this at them.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
The only thing I was going to mention is, by the way, I actually think Tim was right. I think Corrupting Touch is based on Dex because of the fact that it deals +2 damage. So it's based on Dex mod. That's the only +2 mod she has.
Tim was right the entire time.
Her
Good job,
wisdom
Tim.
saving throw is +2. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
take.
That's because
being
she's
right.
proficient in it. That's why
Yeah.
it's listed there.
Cool.
That means it's a +1 proficiency then.
No, it's a +2.
+2.
But her charisma's
Because
+3.
she's +4 to hit, and she has +2 damage, so it's a +2 on the dex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also her wisdom is +0, but her saving throw is +2 because she's proficient.
But her
so it's
charisma
+2.
is +3.
And her charisma saving throw is +5. 3
Plus
+2
4.
is 5.
What?
It says +5 in my book.
I guess I have the old book then, that because it says charisma +4. I guess it was
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have
That's
+5 as
so
well.
interesting.
Yeah.
Mine says
weird.
+5.
I'm looking at it right now and it says +4. And this is
that's
this
so
is the same
interesting.
book that when you go to, not the same book, but the same kind of
No, it's not the
editions.
same book. It's,
Yeah, it's not.
you
Well,
wish it was the same book.
I have a player's handbook that if you go to page 69, it
Instead
says
of classes.
instead of classes it says crasses.
Which
So-
is amazing.
So I guess I have a bunch of faulty books. Like
That's pretty cool, though. Those will be definitely worth more in the future because they're misprints.
Absolutely. And because they'll be owned by Mikey of the most famous monster podcast in the world.
in the whole world. What's
the whole
funnier
world.
is that it's on page 69, and that's a funny sex
Which is
number.
hilarious.
Funny
Which
sex
is just
number.
inherently so funny.
Oh yeah, it's just like the funniest ever. Like I'm still laughing right now.
I believe you.
I never stopped. Anyway.
Okay.
All right. You've all had your dinner. Well done. You've been good. You can eat your pudding now.
I've already eaten all of mine.
Oh man,
Oh, dear.
then podcast over then.
That's it. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Time for encounters.
Just so you know, if there's anything else to read in it, I don't have my monster manual. I've closed it and put it away. Because if you guys remember last week, I put it away and I got caught out.
You did.
Open that back up.
Okay.
Always having fun.
It's fine. He doesn't have to. He doesn't
You don't have to.
to.
Just do what you want, man. Okay.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, I have used a Banshee before as a boss fight, as even like an adventure seed. But I used it in 40, which I don't have it up here right now. I don't want to go searching for it, but whatever. But what I did was it was kind of one of my first ones. It was very video gamey. But the guys were. I woke up one of the players in the inn, and he kind of noticed something outside, and they just saw a spectral woman outside in the town in the middle of the night, just floating around the place. And he was like, "Huh, that's weird." So he gets up, tells the rest of the party, and they follow the spectral woman into a well. Because I love Zelda Ocarina of Time so much, I wanted to have like a dungeon underneath the well, like a spooky well dungeon. So they go in there, they do the dungeon. At the end, they find a spectral woman, this beautiful spectral woman, and she starts yelling and screaming, and she's a spooky banshee. And that was that was kind of one of their first proper boss fights, and that's why I believe it's a very good, from this stat anyway, it's a very good, I'd say maybe second or third level boss, because this has a lot of nice neat little stuff in there.
Yeah.
It's a good one to go with for if you have some new players and stuff, because they kind of know what it is already, and you don't have to explain too much, and it's an interesting fight. So
Yeah. I like it.
That's really it. I didn't really do too much special with it, but I just kind of wanted to mention my story.
It's an effective early game boss.
It is, yeah, it is.
I just opened up the 4th edition monster manual, and I'm looking at the Banshee entry.
Okay, anything different than the 5th edition one? Because that's the one I used.
I think it's fairly similar. The thing is, you have to remember that fourth edition used a lot of keywords, so it just says resist insubstantial, which I assume means it resists a lot of the similar things as the fourth edition. It doesn't have corrupting touch; it has spirit touch, but it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
And then it has 2 special abilities: Death's Visage and Terrifying Shriek.
Okay. So the same kind of stuff then.
Yeah, similar enough.
Horrifying Visage and Whale.
Yeah.
Visage.
Yeah. Visagi. It's me, Visagi, your ancient rival.
Yeah.
The Terrifying Shriek doesn't insta-kill. Rather, it deals some damage, and then it pushes the target back, and then they are immobilized.
Yeah, when I looked up the Banshee on Google, there was a bunch of people on like Reddit and stuff kind of complaining about the 5th edition Banshee, so I think it's because of the whale, I think.
Really?
Or not complaining, but kind of like, it's deadly. What
Just
the heck's
being
up
like,
with that?
yeah. Okay, well, in that sense, then I'll talk about my ideas. The Banshee is a great example of a monster where its abilities are completely reasonable based on the DM acting reasonably and the players acting reasonably.
Okay.
So, like, to put it into perspective, I think, like, the idea that, like, the most famous part of the Banshee is the whale is a very reasonable thing to say. I think it's what most people associate with the Banshee, even people who aren't very well versed in whatever, like, nerd shit, for lack of a better term. So, like, based in that argument, you could very much say that, like, the common folk of any given D&D world would probably know that, like, oh, everyone knows, the whale of a Banshee can freeze a man in his tracks, that sort of thing. So I think if you're like, you go into a room and the door locks behind you because it's Legend of Zelda, and then a Banshee shows up, and then first turn screams and you all die.
Yep.
Like, that's
not exactly what I did, but yeah.
No, it was in 4th edition, so it's different. But like I just mean, like, if you did that now, like in 5th edition, that would be, I think, in very bad faith.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's how a Banshee works.
I think they've given it a little bit of, like, it's very, very powerful if you are within 30 feet. So if you are within, like, a single movement, then you get hit by it. But I don't think that is too ridiculously huge a distance.
And a DC 13 Constitution is a relatively easy roll to get. It's not the hardest anyway. So.
And as a final point, it brings you to 0 hit points. So you still have 3 death saving throws, which is 3 turns for someone to revive you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't kill you. It's not like, the Great Bow of Slaying from before.
Yeah.
So you're just
on
dead.
the Solar, where it just, like, if it hits you, you take a Constitution saving throw, and if you fail, you just die. It just kills you with a big bow.
Yeah.
You just fall over dead.
Which is
like
cheap.
Which is hilarious. But yeah, so I think I feel like, I do feel like the Banshee is dangerous, and I do definitely feel like if you're like random encounter table, a Banshee, like, that is a terrible. Although in fairness, I actually think there'd be something cool to be said for random encounter table. You roll a Banshee and the players just go, we run, like, we just run. Like,
Yeah.
that'd actually be kind of cool if they were like, it's not worth it, we just leave. Like, it doesn't matter where we were trying to go, our lives aren't worth this one patch of road, we leave.
Yeah, we take the other road.
Yeah, we go back, we loop around, because, like, that would almost be more what adventurers would do, right? They'd be like, oh, this path is haunted as fuck. No, let's just take the low road. It's fine. I don't mind traveling for like another 3 days.
We go back, put the fork back where we found it, and go the other way.
Everybody in the same tent now. It's too spooky.
It's too spooky. Everybody's sharing a tent.
We were. This is a really big digress, but I think it'll be a funny story because it's about haunted stuff. But I think I told you lads this. But I was playing a gig in Edinburgh recently, and we were given kind of like a flat upstairs in the bar that we were playing. And it was supposedly haunted according to our drummer, and he was like, and we had a bunch of rooms, but he was like, I don't want to sleep by myself, let's just all go in the same room. And so I had to like move mattresses in, and we all slept together. So it's just like, no, it's haunted, man, we're not sleeping in separate rooms, we have to sleep together, we're going through this together. That's it. Like, just I'd say adventurers are the same.
Yeah, you don't need like one superstitious guy to be like, I don't want I don't want to sleep in a different bed.
Totally.
Like, yeah, like, I don't know, like, you know, the tough as nails fighter or the barbarian's just like, nope, sharing a room.
Uh-huh. The paladin who doesn't quite know yet that his radiant abilities are super effective might just be like a little bit cowardly. That could be kind of fun. We're giving players ideas now. What are we like?
What? This isn't Player Club. Sorry, that's the best name I can come up with.
Players, come out and play.
That's what they do. They're players.
Warriors, come out and warrior.
Okay, so aside from talking about how dangerous the Banshee is and how it's bad and how players of 4th edition, 5th edition even don't like it because it's bad and it's dangerous, let's actually talk about encounters with the Banshee.
Indeed.
So I feel like what I would do is I would effectively give the Banshee a lair, not necessarily a big one. I would think like a dilapidated manor house.
Oh yeah, definitely. Some sort of home some sort of home that is supposedly like haunted. Definitely, I'd say.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Not only because obviously haunted houses are cool and stuff, but also because, more specifically, it talks about in the 5th edition entry how banshees kind of hoard things of beauty. So like, you know, precious gems and fine arts of work and things like that. So, you know, my immediate instinct when it says that is like, well, where does the Banshee keep these things? So the Banshee needs a lair. And, you know, if the Banshee is attracted to beauty, it doesn't make sense that they would live in like a cave or something. That would be kind of weird, like a dingy old cave or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it makes much more sense that they would live in either like a manor house that is now dilapidated, but to the Banshee is as grand as it was when they were alive.
Yeah.
Or if we're going with the idea that it's an elf, maybe it's in like a grove that's like rotted away because of the evil, you know, of the spirit, but used to be this place of life and laughter.
It's definitely connected to how it died somehow. So you can almost like the area, like the grove or the mansion, can like have clues around the place of like, oh, she was this beautiful lady of this house, and just kind of leave little different clues and little lore bits around the house for you to kind of figure out who this person was and why they're angry and all that. You can have a little fun little adventure out of that and fun little like story you can tell at like that session before you have to fight it, and you can either fight it or like kind of say I'm sorry or something. I don't know, like in classic ghost fiction. Hello, I'm your friend.
It's gone.
So definitely the place where its lair, it should definitely be like the place where it died or something.
Yeah.
Or the place it spent most of its life or whatever.
Definitely. Yeah.
I was thinking like for my idea it was like either a grove where she was hoarding all these beautiful things and putting them in a place and she died there. She was either like murdered there or she died trying to protect it from secrets, so she hid there and died of whatever. But like it'll be this very central like grove, and my kind of broader idea, the kind of area effect would be that there are all of her kind of lovers that she had during her life will be these slightly zombie-like creatures who won't be necessarily aggressive towards the party. They might just come across this like gaunt kind of ghostly man kind of crawling around going like, oh, my Shia, where are you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, like she was this beautiful girl who took herself as a princess and wanted to be rescued by all these amazing brave men, but none of them got to her, so she died where she was waiting, kind of thing, you know?
Okay. Interesting. You can take that one for free.
Of course you can.
Listeners. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm saying that for you.
I'll have my PayPal details down below.
So aside from kind of its region and its lair, I think it's reasonable to say that like the actual fight with the Banshee might not be that exciting, although that really depends on the players.
I feel like the best part of the Banshee is the build-up.
Yeah.
I would really agree. See, that this is what I mean, because like to me, like you even run it as a monster. To me, it feels like a monster.
Yeah.
So I think like I feel like what I would do if I were running it is I'd obviously set up this manor house. It's on the outskirts of town. It's abandoned. Like nobody goes there because it's haunted by this ghost. I don't know why. Like this is sort of a weird point, but like assuming that the Banshee lived close enough, there's nothing that would stop it from like basically devouring an entire town or killing an entire town.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't talk about like it can't come into a home or it doesn't have any interest in things like that. So I don't know. I'm sure you could come up with something like, you know, the local cleric has performed a ritual of warding on all the buildings so that they're safe.
Ritual of sealing so that it stays like in a particular area in the forest or whatever.
Or even just something as simple as like old hokey magic, like, oh yeah, if you hang up like, you know, a sprig of holly over the door and sprinkle it in holy water, the Banshee can't come in. Why? The Banshee can't come in, you know? Like, nobody cares why. Or its lair could simply be far away enough that it's not an immediate risk to the villagers, but it's, you know, it can be dangerous if you're traveling the roads. And I very much agree with what you say, DC, that like the fight against the Banshee is a lot of build-up. I especially feel like there's an element of like preparation, you know, where the players get the right items, prepare the right spells, things like that. You know, set out at dawn so that they arrive in time, you know, before maybe the sun sets, so they can try and attack the Banshee before it can use its wail.
Yeah.
Or maybe it could be like something that the players go into this town and they hear about it, but it's very strongly suggested that like do not go into this forest unprepared. Like go to the big city just north of here and do your research and see what you can do. Too many people have gone in and not come back.
I don't think you need to be that clear. I don't think you need to be that explicit. I think it's enough to simply have the villagers say like, you know, oh well, there's an evil spirit in those woods. Anyone who goes in there dies. And like, you know, maybe a party of players go, sounds dangerous, and then another party player goes, we can handle it, and like one of them ends up dead, but it's their fault. Like it's not your job to hold their hands. It's your job to be like, what do you want to do next? And it's like, I'd kill myself. Yeah, all right.
Cool. Well done. You completed your mission.
I think how I did it, I'm just remembering now, is that I kind of built it up with like people, like men were like disappearing.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Men were disappearing over certain nights and stuff. So when the players went to a town and they asked for rumors, went to an inn, like any rumors, little secret, stuff like that. They
sorry, that tickled me.
They were told, oh yeah, like a bunch of men, like a bunch of people are missing, and then like, oh, what's this is weird, and like, oh, they're all men, and like every night for like every 2 days, someone's being just gone from there each night and stuff. So you look this up, and then even and as I said at the last night, where the one player woke up to seeing it. So
yeah, that's actually, I really like that as a hook. That's a very good hook, DC. The idea like that, like, you know, especially if you're going to do the idea of like it was like a lady, an elven beauty, like the idea that it's kind of luring men to their death.
Yeah,
it's very like the siren. It's cool. I like.
Oh
that.
yeah. I know it's a different monster, but yeah.
No, yeah, but it's a very cool idea. The only thing I was the only thing I was going to say in terms of mechanics is I think I would give the Banshee a bunch of lair actions.
Oh yeah.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I would just kind of imagine like sort of like poltergeisty stuff, like throwing objects in the room at the party.
Or maybe like a double vision kind of thing, like she splits into two, but only one of them can do a whale or something.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
I was going to say maybe something like shifting, like if it's in like a manner, for example, like, you know, shifting the foundations so that everyone has to try and like not fall prone, like a saving throw or something. And then probably just like one of the layer actions is just like you just punch someone, you know, you just hit them or whatever. But I that's very much like, I just mean because sometimes one of their actions is just like, and then you make an attack. But yeah, I would say I think using a group of just like some really, really simple layer actions, definitely I would emphasize, because this is a low level boss, have them do very little damage, but just be more like, you know, dangers to the party, because otherwise you're going to have that classic problem of, you know, one boss monster who gets one attack a turn, and then 4 players who all just like, you know, Shaun of the Dead, this one friggin' like ghost or whatever.
Don't
because
stop
like
me now.
yeah, exactly. Like that's exactly what it's going to be like. So I just think that, like, you know, just something to mix it up a little bit. I mean, even have something like, you know, as the Banshee gets weakened, maybe it like flees to different rooms of the manor and it has different layer actions depending on which room it's in. That could be fun. You know, like in one room there's like a grand piano and it like plays a tune and then flings itself at you or something.
Like that, like from the Animate Objects episode, the killer piano from Mario 64.
From Mario 64, that thing was really scary.
Yeah, it was.
It was legitimately like unsettling. And yeah, so I think that's like all I'd say mechanically. Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about?
I think I said everything I wanted to say on it. It's a simple enough one, but it can be a very iconic boss fight if you use it right. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not done though. Sorry.
Oh no,
Daniel.
hold it.
I only wanted to say who was, I don't know if you can remember, Tim, or if you still have it open, the name of the sort of head of the Banshees or queen of the Banshees.
Uabrian.
Uabrian.
Oh,
So-
the Uabrian Banshee was the basically the head honcho, and its name is Abel.
Is what?
Abel,
Oh, its name is Abel. So Uabrian means like head honcho or top Banshee or whatever.
basically.
Wait, so okay, but that's perfect, right? Like this is, I was just going to talk about this idea of like, you know, this like Banshees aren't just like these specific creatures that are like, I'm angry because I'm a dead woman, and I'm gonna, you know, do the thing. Like you could also have like, you know, this queen of the Banshees who has like other Banshees under her somehow, and like, how does that power manifest? What does that power mean? You know. And like, I was thinking about, you know, when you said before, Tim, the idea of like these kind of lost souls wandering through the territory of a Banshee, they could be an explanation for revenants. They could be an example of how revenants come about in the world.
Okay, yeah.
That could be kind of cool. And even the idea then that like if the Banshee is stopped, these revenants are suddenly free of their shackles, but maybe they're still around and now they don't know what to do with themselves.
Maybe the Uabrian could be like a matchmaker who had all these beautiful women coming to her, and she would like cause them to be like really selfish and very self-absorbed, and then they would cause these situations to happen, and she would incite all of these terrible incidences that would lead to their ultimate demise, so that she could control them as banshees. Maybe.
I was thinking more like that's a really good, sorry, that is actually a really good example. But I just had the idea while you were saying like, because I wasn't thinking so much about the origin of the Uabrian, but that's a good point. And I just had the idea of kind of like very like Tolkien-esque, the idea like the first Banshee is the Uabrian. Like the first time it happened, the first time like an elven woman fell from grace, they became the Uabrian, who is like the most powerful of the Banshees.
Yeah.
But that's it's kind of contrived. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking about like what you could do with like if you had like a creature called the Queen of the Banshees. You know, first of all, what could they do, and second of all, what would they want?
Yeah.
I feel like a Queen of the Banshees could be a really cool character for. So we already talked about the idea of like, you know, kind of kidnapping or enthralling men. That would be a really interesting villain. An Uabrian who is sort of charming, you know, men into her service, and then using them to enact a plan, probably like through necromancy, to try and basically bring herself back to life.
Yeah.
That could be kind of a
That's
cool
interesting.
villain reveal where like, you know, all these actions are being performed by like male cultists, and then it gets revealed at the end it was actually like this Banshee queen.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me, what are revenants? They're
just people who aren't dead.
Yeah, they're people who are given another life from a god.
Yeah, from like some source, normally like a god.
Yeah.
okay.
In 4th edition they were a player race,
Yeah,
Oh,
they were.
weird.
where you basically, the idea was like you came back and you kind of, you know, it was like, why did you come back? Who gave you your second chance? Stuff like that.
And you can probably use it as a player race, but like just use a regular race and just say you're revenant and just you're cut
Yeah,
back to
just-
life, you know.
Just like come up with some 1 or 2 rules, just
Yeah.
for like
See.
your, or just steal the rules from 4th edition. They probably work fine.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking that like for the U of Rian, maybe they use the male kind of counterparts to banshees as well for my little idea, as opposed to just being queen of the banshees. Maybe she's just this central figure that controls undead ladies and undead dudes. This is an expansion on my idea earlier that just occurred to me there when you started mentioning that you might do that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Cool. I was actually just going to ask. We mentioned this very briefly at the start, but the idea of instead of a banshee, a farshee.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do we want to do anything like if we so I don't see any reason why you couldn't have the same story with a man instead of a woman.
Yeah, totally.
But I'm also thinking like, rather than just saying, okay, but it's a man instead of a woman, what if you said like, okay, well, how is it different? Like if it's a farshee instead of a banshee, is it a different fall from grace,
Yeah.
And part of me says like, honestly, part of me just says like, nah,
Yeah.
because the way the banshee is described is just someone who is, attractive and charismatic and uses that for selfish self-gain rather than for, trying to help other people. I don't see any reason why like male, I guess in the context of D&D, male elves specifically couldn't do the same thing.
That's what happens, and then Sauron. That's
Yeah, and then
what
Sauron.
happens.
Yeah. I missed something here. What are we talking about? Sauron.
The male version of banshees, elves or male elves being kind of corrupted by their own greed and like stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what Sauron is. Oh, he's not an elf though. He's something else. He's one of
Is he
those
not?
weird ones. Isn't he one of the like god people or something?
Valar?
Yeah, isn't he one of the Valhar? Isn't he like the fallen Valhar?
Oh.
Or
I
is
need
it
to read the
Morgoth's the
Silmarillion.
or is it Morgoth's the fallen Valhar and he's something else?
Yeah.
He might just
Need
be a
to read
fallen
the
elf.
Silmarillion.
I know that he's the servant of Morgoth, and Morgoth was a really bad guy, but I don't know.
Yeah, the big bad.
I think Morgoth might have just been like stronger than a Valhar, like Shelob. They're like the two sources of evil in the world or something. Anyway, I don't know. You know what? I don't know.
I think we're digressing a little bit, guys.
Just a little.
No, we're not. This is very relevant.
Yeah. Always time for Lord of the Rings.
The only thing, actually, there's one last point that I just thought I'd mention very briefly. It talks about the idea that the Banshee, it's not. It says it specifically uses the wording "elves afflicted by the Banshee's curse." So it's not like when you're a ghost, right? Like obviously, like ghosts in D&D are kind of like they're like a spirit. They're like a person who had something they needed to do in life, or they were killed in some unjust way, and their spirit was so saddened or enraged or full of some emotion that they couldn't move on to the next life, that they were trapped on the material plane. At least I think that's ghosts. I know there's ghosts and specters and spirits and blah, blah, but I think that's ghosts. But my point is that the Banshee isn't just that, but an elven lady who was vain. It seems to suggest that that is a specific curse, something or someone like curses these people and turns them into banshees.
Yeah.
So
Couldn't
it
read
might
that.
be interesting to think about who does that and why.
Who does that?
Gorgox, the wizard. He does
Dang
it.
it, Korgox. In the book it says that it's like a divine curse. It's like the gods punishing you for your pride.
Avarice.
Which is one way to do it, but I don't know. I'm just mentioning it because it's interesting, especially the idea that the curse, it describes in the book how the curse is like, it's not immediate, it's kind of eventual. If, for example, one of your players received that curse, and they started to change, that could be interesting.
Okay.
And then they had to sort of go and like, they got to fix this before they turn into a banshee. But yeah, anyway, those are my final thoughts.
Sweetheart, cool.
Are we finally done?
So, is this the end?
Is this
What year is it?
Is this the end?
Yeah, I think we're all
Cool.
done.
Well, that was Banshees.
Banshees.
That was an interesting episode. That was a good one.
That was a good episode. I liked how this is an example of an episode where one of us had actually used the creature, so we got to talk about that.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
we don't always get to do that.
This is my first one, I think, that I've really used. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so
I'm
too.
just scrolling through them all right now. Yes, my first one.
Cool.
Actually, the next one I've used as well, but I'll mention him at the end.
Oh,
But yeah, that's B. We're starting B, guys.
we're starting B.
bees.
a new chapter of the Creature Club.
Literally.
Yeah, a new chapter, chapter B. So thanks for joining us, guys, for Creature Club episode Banshee. If you liked if you
Sorry, that really tickled me.
yeah, okay, that's fine. If you like this episode and you're listening to it on iTunes, please leave us a review because that actually helps us out quite a bit. If not, if you're listening on the website, then leave a comment. Let us know that you're there. We always love hearing from you guys. If you've used Banshees or if you have any cool ideas for Banshees, leave a comment once again. Let us know. If you have any homebrews, we always say this, any homebrews that either you made yourself or you found from someone else, send us on to them. No, send them on to us.
Yes.
We have a fancy, neat little thing on the website, a little contact section for you to do that. Just send your email along with it, and we'll know who you are, and send us the homebrews. And next episode, we're going to go through basilisks.
Oh, you spoiled it.
I spoiled it. We haven't done that in a while, where we say the next thing in the episode. I've used that one, so I have a couple of stories for that guy. But cool. So that should be a bit of fun. Anyway, I have been Mikey.
I've been Dan.
And I have been Tim.
And stay cool.